Hey everybody, this is Adam Scott here, head GM, founder of RPG Club. Today we're going to be trying something new. I need to get connected up here with a new software that I'm using. I'm using StreamYards to connect all three of my streaming accounts at the same time. So give me a second here as I go live with all my platforms. I think this should work. There we go. Nice. So today I want to talk about a couple things, and this is something that is a continuation from yesterday, but I really want to get into this a little bit more. And folks have asked me about how I teach D&D. So I've taught thousands of people how to play. And as a 15-year classroom teacher, I wanted to address some of the teaching methods I've used that are successful with teaching D&D, but also teaching anything else. So there's a process I use called scaffolding. And I want to get into this process and just start talking about this right away as people come in and people start saying hi, because I think this process can be helpful to you, whether you're teaching Dungeons and Dragons or you're teaching anything else, because there's this it can be intimidating to teach things. So what is scaffolding? What is it not? And how do you use it, especially when you're doing Dungeons and Dragons or teaching a role-playing game? Because that's most of my audience is role-playing game focused. So when you're teaching something, there's this idea of, okay, well, how do I understand where people are at? And so there's a 4-part process when it comes to teaching something in a role-playing space or in any type of space. And what you need to do when you first come in, or at least what I did for 15 years when I was in the classroom, is you have to assess where people are at. Because when you're trying to teach a new skill, when you're trying to teach D&D, when you're trying to teach whether it's a sport or writing an essay or anything, it's hard to figure out where to go if you don't know where people are. So the first thing I always do is I always start off with an assessment. And that can be very informal. Many players in Dungeons and Dragons, when they're teaching something with D&D, they'll look at it as a session 0, where they can work together with people to kind of get the lay of the land and where people are at. But one thing I want to emphasize is that I've had success with teaching concepts that can be challenging by keeping the assessment as short as possible, getting all the information one needs as quickly as possible, and then moving on to the meat of what you're trying to do. What can get really frustrating for someone when they're trying to learn something, especially in a role-playing game, when players are fired up, they're excited, they're ready to go to do something new, is getting stuck in talking about it at the beginning. We're talking about doing it. We're going on and on. We keep talking. Oh my God. Like, are we going to keep talking? One thing I see a lot in the role-playing community, and this is important, but it also can get lost in what the objective is there tends to be a really lengthy discussion about creating a safe environment for people. Now that's very important when you're doing any kind of educational activity. But my perspective is that creating a safe environment is actually something you reinforce as you go throughout the experience. It's not something that you mention once and then say, okay, this is how we're going to have a safe environment. Now let's go learn. It comes through the demonstration of that safe environment and those safe practices by this instructor, by the teacher as you go through it. So when folks ask questions as you go along, when people come to a place where they maybe feel uncomfortable, it's incumbent upon the teacher to say, hey, you're doing great. Hey, that's okay. It's okay to have questions, or don't worry about messing up. No one's getting it wrong. You're doing a great job just by being here, just by taking a step. So don't get bogged down in the assessment phase. Get what you need to know from that, figure out where people are at, and then it's on to starting the process of doing. So when I was teaching in the classroom, what I would do for an assessment with writing is I would have kids write just a paragraph just to see where they were at. And then I would say, okay, now I know where we're at. I'm going to teach a basic skill, but we're going to just get into it. I'm going to teach a small skill. Maybe it's, I don't know, how to create a thesis statement, which actually could take a lot longer than one might anticipate. But so it seems like small, but it's an isolated skill. So focusing on an isolated skill is something that I found is really useful, as opposed to trying to say, we're going to learn everything. Like, let's learn one thing. Let's learn one thing, and then we get some feedback. Let's learn another thing, and then we get some feedback. And that's an iterative process in education that I think can be lost when you're at the role-playing table, this idea of going back and forth on the feedback. By the way, if you're dropping comments here, I'm trying to keep track and see if I have comments. I don't know if I can see it on the new way I'm looking at my screen. So I'm going to try, let me see if I can drop something here. Test. Can I see that? Let me check here. Do I see that? There we go. Okay. So if you want to drop a comment, I can see it. I'm just trying to get used to my new format. Or at least this test format for the day. So, okay. You are somebody who now has, you're sitting down, you're teaching a game, you've assessed where players are at. Maybe they are just like, I have no idea. I don't know what the rules are. I don't even know where to start. That's where you start. And that's the thing you need to learn. And that's the thing they're going to have questions about. And then there's nothing past that. So if someone doesn't know, I hold it up. I was talking about this yesterday. Like, I'll hold up my D20. I'll be like, this is the D20. You're going to get to use this today. It's going to be awesome. If someone doesn't know how to use a D20, they're not going to understand a character sheet. Okay, this is the first skill in the stack before one comes to the character sheet. You can't really use the character sheet until you understand that this is the key mechanic. So you got to teach this before you teach the character sheet. You say this, holding up the D20. So once you start teaching what the D20 is, you start providing adjustable support. So somebody might go, oh yeah, okay, I know I have a bunch of dice here. Here's a 20-sided die. Awesome. Many folks will say, which die is it? I don't know. They'll have 6 dice in there. Here's I have like a 8-sided. They'll hold all the dice up. I'm like, I don't know what I have. And then it's important to provide adjustable support. Some folks might need you to walk through literally each different die and say, well, one of these is a 4-sider. And you see it's got 4 sides here. One of these is a 6-sider. And you see it's got 6 sides. Other folks might need you to just say, oh yeah, it's the one that looks kind of like a ball. It's really big. It's probably got an 18 or 19 on it. And that might help for some. But everybody's going to need something different. And what I see in the role-playing space that creates a lot of problems is when folks say, all right, you're going to roll your D20. Go ahead and roll your die. Let's make a check. Boom, you lost them. You lost them. How do people know how to do that? Why are we expecting people to know how to do that when they first come to the table? They don't know how to do that if they've never done this before. So this idea of like, just make a check. Go ahead and make a check. Roll a D20. First common misconception of teaching D&D is just that everyone knows how to make a check. Just because we as the teacher know how to do it doesn't mean that the learner or student knows how to do it, or the student player knows how to do it. So we walk them through it. We walk it through slowly. We walk it through nice and beginner's mindset, and making sure that we don't treat them stupid. We don't want to treat people stupid. I don't want to treat people stupidly. If they ask a question, it's a good thing, right? If they're like, well, what die do I use? That means they want to learn. They want to learn. They want to get where they're going. They want to engage in the hobby, but they just don't know. They've never rolled a D20 before. So we got to explain it to them. We got to be supportive and go, I'm great. I'm so glad you asked. That's an awesome question. I want to tell you what die it is. Can you hold those dice? Did you go buy some dice recently? Like, be super jacked and enthusiastic about it. Matt says, I watched your video and I was pleased to see that I do something similar. Hey, nice. Awesome. Great minds think alike, Matt. I appreciate it. I'm stoked. I don't know, by the way, if the quality of this video is very good. I'm trying out a different thing today. So if the quality of the audio and the video is not perfect, I apologize, but I try to do something new every day when I'm doing something for work. So we're doing something new today. Okay. So when we teach the D20, teaching the D20, they have the D20, they're making a check. We're providing assessment when we first start. Then we provide adjustable support. So we're teaching an idea, got another D20. Hey, this is great. Some people might need you to walk through all the dice. Others might just go, oh yeah, it's the ball. And they can start rolling. That person now understands what this is and how to use a check. The next thing is, what do we do when we make a check? We add a bonus. We add a modifier. They don't need to know all the skills. They don't need to know strength, dexterity, constitution. And I'll hear many people like, let me tell you about constitution. Let me tell you about intelligence and what it means. And you can learn wizard spells. Boom, you lost them. They don't need to know that. They don't care about that. They might care as a person, but they don't care as a student. In that moment, the skill is take the die, add the bonus. That's it. So the way I teach it to provide adjustable support is I usually ask, hey, what do you think your character might be good at? Are they good at looking around and perceiving things? Or are they good at magic? Are they good at using a sword or weapon, like smashing things? Are they strong? And the person in their head usually has an idea of using logic of like, oh yeah, my character's probably good at those things. Use that. It's okay. Well, if you're probably pretty good at that, in this game, when we roll the dice, we're checking to see if we succeed or fail. And then we add a bonus, or if you're bad at something, we take a minus away. And then we see what the result is. And then if you beat the number that I have in my head called a difficulty check, then you succeed. And if you don't, then you fail, but we have fun either way. Some people, they go, okay, that's great. Cool. Awesome. Other folks will go, I don't know what that means. So you got to walk them through it. And you say, okay, I want you to roll your D20. And they'll roll the D20. And you say, okay, I want you to add this modifier because you're good. You're really good at, I don't know, it's Arcana check, whatever. And like, you're good at understanding magic. And then you're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. And then you're walking them through, you're connecting the logic and the understanding to the mechanics. But if you just say, oh, just make an Arcana check, that is like being on the moon to somebody who has never learned something. It was like when my first teacher, when I was in high school, told me like, I want you to write a good thesis statement. That's an argumentative thesis statement. I'm like, I don't have any idea how to do that. He's like, okay, well, that's what we have to teach you. So we spent, when I was a kid, we spent, 6 months really trying to figure it out. So don't assume that people know how to do things just because you do. That was my philosophy as a teacher. Just because I know how to do it doesn't mean someone else knows how to do it. So beginner's mindset. So walking through the steps we're understanding so far. Scaffolding. Scaffolding is building up. It's like basically building up support and then slowly taking it away to make sure. I don't know if I explained that at the beginning. Sorry about that. So when we build support and then we slowly take it away as people feel like they have more mastery. So we look to assess to figure out, okay, what does this person know? Then we provide adjustable support. Where with the dice example, okay, we got the dice. How much detail do we go into? As much as somebody needs. And then the third step is we provide feedback. And I'll walk through some more examples in a second. So we've got assessment. we've got adjustable support, and then we have feedback. So then we provide feedback to the person. So let's say somebody rolls the dice. It's just as simple as rolling the dice. They make a check. They go, okay, I got a 17, and maybe you told them to add +3, and they're like, I got a 17, and you have to say, well, did you add all your modifiers in there? And they're like, no, and they're usually feeling bad if they did. Like it's like they didn't do something right. Okay, and the natural thing is, and I see a lot of GMs do this. They go, well, actually, you should have added your modifier in. Boom, big problem, because basically what you just told someone is you did it wrong. And the natural tendency for people is when they're told that they did something wrong, they shut down. They just shut the heck down. When anyone's told they do something wrong, they shut down. Praise the effort. Hey, I love that you rolled your die. That's super exciting. I want to make sure your character gets the benefit of all the good stuff that they're at. Did you say they were good at magic? And they're like, oh yeah. And you know what? You get a +3 bonus. Just repeat the same thing you just said to them, because they're learning. When you're learning, you're not in the moment always putting the pieces together. You have to get over that. It's important to help the person who's uncomfortable get through that by being enthusiastic and providing lots of support. So walk them through it. We say, okay, hey, you're giving them the feedback. They did something wrong, but you're giving them the feedback of, hey, that's okay. We're going to roll the dice. And then what was that bonus? Oh, that bonus was +3. Oh, that's awesome. We're going to add that in. Tell me what that total was. Don't do it for them. Don't make them feel stupid. Give them the confidence of saying, oh yeah, okay, 17 + 3 out of 20. Okay, this is just a simple act of rolling a dice and adding a modifier. But if someone can't do that, they can't play D&D. And what I see a lot of GMs do, and I don't want to crap all over GMs, but I'm going to say a few things, is that GMs that have a hard time teaching people, they just assume, go ahead and roll a die and make a check and tell me what you get. Okay. To someone who's never played before, that's the most complicated thing in the world. Why would they want to keep playing? And when we skip over that basic skill when we're teaching a player how to play D&D or any role-playing game, they can't play. They don't have any idea. They can't do the basic action. When I was a basketball coach, what did we do? What did we do every day? Every day in practice, we learned how to dribble, we learned how to pass, we learned how to make layups. Because if you can't do those 3 things, you can't play basketball. And we did it every day, all season. I coached for years. That was what we did every day. Oh, coach, this is boring. Yes, but if you don't know how to do it, we can't score, you can't pass, you can't move. So the basics are always important. Fundamentals are key. And as a coach, as a teacher in the classroom, fundamentals are always important. No one cares about multi-classing. And I'll see GMs come in and be like, did you know you can multi-class with your awesome character? Yeah, so good. The things you're excited about as a GM, you have this infinite knowledge of things compared to someone who's just started. You have years and years and years of learning, of understanding, of being enmeshed in this, and just being involved in it so completely that we forget their beginner's mindset in many cases. Sometimes I'm guilty of that. But when we go back to that beginner's mindset, we realize, okay, what did I need to learn first? I need to learn how to do something in the game. And that starts with, in D&D at least, making a skill check, making an attack roll, or just saying, how do you move your character? So let's go use another example here. So we've learned about the 3 of the 4 things with scaffolding. Thing 1 was assessment. Thing 2 was adjustable support. So seeing how much support somebody needs when they're doing something. Thing 3 is feedback. So providing feedback, but in a positive, supportive way to where you don't make someone feel stupid. Never make someone feel stupid. As soon as you make someone feel stupid, they're out. They're gone. Why would they come back? Why would they care? Because you made them feel like a dumbass. Don't make people feel dumb. When they're trying to learn something, and I tell people the act of feeling uncomfortable and learning something is the act of learning something. It's when you get, it's your body and mind trying to say, I don't want to do this. I'm uncomfortable. And the person who succeeds is the person who is able to physically and mentally get through that discomfort. And it's the job of the teacher. As a teacher, I look at it as my obligation to help them get through that, to help them get through the discomfort. I've ran through the wall of discomfort with this thing that we're learning. And I've said, it's okay. I got you. We're going to get there. It's okay. You're doing great. You just keep providing that support and the feedback. 4th thing, it's called the zone of proximal development. This is something I learned in graduate school, which actually applies. There's a lot of things in graduate school I learned that don't apply, but this actually did apply. And I used it all the time, and I still use it. Use it in the classroom, use it coaching, and I use it when I'm teaching D&D. And let me check the chat, by the way, because there's some people chatting it up. Matt says, man, I love your supportive approach. Yep. Happy to do it. Happy to do it. I'm always here to help. That's my job. Ren says, thanks. I'm talking to my local game store about having a beginner class so I can join. I've learned some by reading and looking things, but I have no idea if I'm doing it right. Ren, you need to come to my workshop. I have a workshop on Sunday. I'm going to take care of you. You need to send me a PM. We're doing a 1-hour workshop. We did one last week and it was awesome. Several people were in the same situation where they said, I don't know how to do this. I just need to know if I'm doing it right. I've read all the rules, but I don't get it. In 1 hour, by the end of it, those folks were like, oh, I get it. This is awesome. And they're signing up for campaigns. They're going to join games with their friends. So the link, if you want one, just send me a PM and I'll shoot you a link to my workshop this weekend because I want you to go. We have several people already attending and it's going to be a good time. 2 p.m. Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Matt says, if you're playing and learning, you're doing it right. You can always figure out more stuff as you go. Yeah. The thing is you got to get in the game. You got to start. So let me go back to talking about the zone of proximal development, which is a very fancy way. I think it was a guy named Vygotsky who wrote this idea. The ZPD is just a way of saying find the sweet spot. So teach with enough support so that people feel encouraged, but give them something to learn. Don't do it for them. So if someone can add, don't do the addition for them. But if someone doesn't know what a D20 is, show it to them. But if they're like, oh yeah, I have one of these dice, and then they can figure out what a D20 is, back off. This is the art of teaching. I have a hard time explaining to people because I think a lot of it is personal intuition. And what I've noticed in the role-playing space is a lot of people lack that. And that's not a knock on people. It's just a skill. I am not good at other things, but I am good at this. And I'm good at reading people. I'm good at being in tune with somebody and being hyper attentive and hyper aware in the moment of where someone is at. And for me, that's a skill that I have that I've developed over time, but also it's something that's come naturally. But you can practice it. And the way that you practice it is by being hyper aware of what's going on with somebody else. Are they struggling? Always, it's like there's an assessor going on in your brain, just reading them the whole time, going, are they struggling? Are they having fun? Are they succeeding? Do they feel like they need a little help? Are they getting stuck? Are they feeling nervous? And if someone gets stuck, that's when you give them a little boop, you give them a push, you give them a little bit more information, a little bit more support. But if they are moving along real quick, then you back off the support. It's like a throttle. Okay. And you want people to keep moving at a strong pace. And so the philosophy we have in RPG Club is that pace creates immersion, immersion creates positive experiences. So if you are able to teach somebody in a way that continues the pace, it keeps the pace moving, it is a way to create a positive association with something, and it is a way to increase learning gains. So when someone's trying to learn the game, if we keep the pace moving, okay, hey, we're going to learn the D20. Okay, let me explain how the D20 works. Awesome. Yeah, we get it. Okay, we're going to explain modifiers. All right, let's adventure. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm going to tell you here. Let's do this. I'm going to set up a scenario with my explanation. You walk into an inn. Here's what you see in the inn. Let's say, what do your characters want to do? And then players are like, oh my God, I don't know what my characters want to do. And that's when you say, let me tell you how to move your character. If you have a video game, oh my gosh, you're going to have controls. You can navigate, move around. But instead, what we do is we use our minds and our voices in a role-playing game to navigate our characters around through explaining what we want our characters to do. And, depending on if I'm working with kids or working with adults, I change my language and tone just to make sure I'm not being, I want to be enthusiastic, but I don't want to diminish people and make people feel stupid. And you never want to make people feel stupid when they're learning something. So Matt says, great stuff. I got to go. I appreciate it, Matt. Hey, happy to help. That's what I'm here for. Lauren says, I attended his workshop last Sunday. It was fantastic. Would recommend. Thanks for the shout out, Lauren. I appreciate it. You were awesome at the workshop. You've always been a super supporter of RPG Club. And I'm trying to get you to GM for us because you'd be an awesome GM. So I want you to get on their GM roster. But this thing of teaching is just repetition. It's just putting in the reps. And for me now, I've done this. Did it for 15 years. I've taught over 5,000, you add all the kids I taught in the classroom for a year. My classroom roster was over 1,000 kids in person over the years. And then you add the people I've worked with online, in person, face-to-face, but online, and you add it up to over probably anywhere 4,000 to 5,000 people. And then you expand 10,000 people at this point. It's a lot. So taking these methods and just applying them, I think is a really important idea. I think it can really help you in your games. And having the beginner's mindset, having a positive attitude, being in tune with where people are at and not piling on too much. So piling on only what someone can have and pile one skill at a time. And here's what I say. If someone can't get something, you got to read people's faces. There's no other way to do this, but just to look at people and see if they're struggling. See if they're struggling. And if they're really like stressing out, reading an emotion, that's when you say, hey, don't worry about that. We'll learn that next time. Okay, that's because pace creates a positive experience. But if you push them too hard and you go, no, you have to learn this. We have to learn saving throws right now. Who cares about saving throws? What does saving throws have to do? So if you're trying to teach someone a saving throw, but they don't get it, which sometimes people will stumble with when they first learn role-playing games. But if you're trying to teach saving throws, what does a saving throw have to do with actually learning how to play D&D? What's the objective? I'm curious in the chat. What is the objective of a role-playing game? So if we're thinking objective focused, what is the objective of a role-playing game? What are you trying to do with a role-playing game? What is the whole point of playing together in a role-playing game? I'm curious. Anybody want to take a guess? We're playing together in a role-playing game. What are we trying to do? What is the objective? Are we there to, Freud says, move the story forward? Quasar says to tell a story. World of Phasia says to have fun. Yeah. Those are what we're there for, right? We're there to tell a story and have a good time. Move the story, create pace, create a positive experience. Being part of a fun story is what William says. Yeah, exactly. We're trying to do the thing together that's fun. We're trying to have a positive experience. Collaborative storytelling is what Power says. Yeah, collaborative storytelling. We're trying to do something together. We're trying to have a positive experience together. None of the rules have anything to do with that. The rules just facilitate that. And this can apply to anything that we're doing. So whatever the objective is, like coaching basketball, the objective was to create a process of working together as a team, building life skills, and hopefully have some success and get better as an athletic team. There were some things where kids aren't going to learn how to do things. Some kids couldn't shoot 3-pointers. It wasn't going to happen. They weren't strong enough. They were tiny. So there's no point in teaching that skill, but you could teach them how to shoot a layup. You could teach them how to play defense. Those kind of things get them in the game. They get them on the court. They give them the ability to contribute. People want to contribute, which you can tell right now. I want you all to contribute. I'm saying, hey, what do you think? What do you think? I'm inviting you in. What do you think about this? What's your opinion? What's your perspective? What do you think the point is? I want you to feel included in this. People don't feel included, they're going to shut down. So we want to keep in mind, from my point of view, the positive. We want to keep in mind the objective of what we're doing. And so when you're playing a role-playing game, to me, the objective is always to have a good, positive experience telling a story together. I have a whole bunch of other stuff I'm going to talk about with that probably next week in terms of myth making and the importance of myth and connection. But keep in mind the goal, because where I see the downfall of many GMs and many people that I get comments from that, for whatever reason, I don't know if they don't like what I do which I don't really understand how you can not like a service company. It's like, it's not like I dislike a plumber. I never see a plumbing company and be like, God, what an asshole. He's a plumber. He can plumb. What a jerk. I'm just like, I don't understand that idea of like, oh, I don't know how they do that. I don't know. But where I see the downfall of a lot of people trying to form D&D groups is they forget the objective. And if you're a GM, the objective is not for you to tell your story. The objective is not for you to tell your own self-fulfilling story. The objective is to have a positive experience for the group. That is why most GMs fail at what they do, because the focus is on, hey, let's take care of the people. Let's not take care of myself. That's where I see GMs have a hard time. Freud says, at least not until after you hire them. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. The thing is, I don't often hire people that have crappy attitudes. And what I will notice is that we've had a really hard time maintaining people from Start Playing, which is another site that they try to say that they do something similar to what we do. It's actually much different in terms of the ethos. So I have a lot of people that'll hit me up and be like, I'm on Start Playing and I do this and I have all this and I'm awesome at this and you're doing it wrong and I'm doing it right. And I'm like, well, maybe not, because those people have never worked out for the most part. We have some connections with that, but those are mostly RPG Club GMs. That's a whole different topic. We can talk about that later. I feel like that would be a negative topic and I don't really want to talk negatively today. So let me know what questions you have. I want to reemphasize the key points we had today. And then if there's any other questions, I'll get to those. So when you're scaffolding, 4 points, you want to make sure you're assessing, seeing where people are at. You want to make sure you're providing adjustable support, because the process of scaffolding is providing as much support as you need and then stripping it away as people are successful. You want to provide regular feedback. Feedback needs to be positive. It needs to be consistent. It needs to be engaging. It needs to be supportive. And you kind of have that beginner's mindset. If you come to somebody and like, oh yeah, duh, this is a D8. God, you moron, how did you didn't know this is a D8? Yeah, it's got 8 sides, duh. You're gonna lose them. They're never gonna come back. And that's why I think most people don't come back to role-playing game sessions where they just meet pickup sessions and there's random GMs, because GMs don't have a teaching mindset at the local store most of the time. It's not gonna knock anybody that does that, but it's just they're gamers. They're like, hey, I'm in a game. I'm here to game. I want to play. I have my story to tell. I did all my prep. Ooh, I wanted to mention a note about prep. Remind me to talk about prep in a second. So there's feedback, and then there's the zone of proximal development, the ZPD, where we're targeting how much support we provide. I want to talk about prep. So as a teacher, and for a long, long time, this was a very frustrating thing, and it parallels perfectly to the GM space. So the process of teaching is preparation. I mean, when I first started, I was reading constantly. It was just nothing but reading books, prepping material every day. I would teach for several hours and I would go home. I would prep. I would then, on the weekend, I would prep all weekend. I would prep PowerPoints, handouts, essay prompts, just everything. It was always prep. Toward the end of my career, after I had established what was working well for me, I didn't need to do so much prep. It was mostly just instruction in the classroom. The thing that the GMs out there, I would like to have you realize, or at least think about, is you're not going to use most of what you prep. There was a saying when I was in the classroom that, you prepare this much, you teach this much, and everybody remembers this much. And it's this much that you have to work with next time. So it's the next lesson or the next session or whatever. The next iteration of learning comes in right here. So that applies totally to role-playing games. So as GMs, we have in our head this story, we have our notes, we have all the things that we are going to tell, we have the lore, we have all these things. That's very egotistical. It's very egocentric if we prioritize that. But if we use it to serve the players and the things that they are going to remember, which usually relates specifically to their character, their character's motivation, then we're going to end up having a really positive time. So maybe you have this huge story, and the first professional game I wrote, I had this huge lore, all this stuff written up, like tons of stuff, and I was writing as we went along, targeted to the characters. They didn't remember a whole lot of it, but they did remember the one NPC who was connected to the several backstories. And when the NPC, I think their name was Solomon Walker, and Solomon Walker was trying to find their soul. They were a warlock, and they were trying to find the soul of their character. And after like 15 to 20 sessions, it's like 40 or 50 hours of gameplay, the characters helped Solomon Walker find their soul. And they remembered that piece of lore because it connected to 2 or 3 of the characters' backstories directly and fed into the motivations of 2 of the other characters. And that was important to them. The rest of it was not important to them. And so the rest of it, what I started to learn is I don't need to flesh out all of this lore. I found that for me, because I have a background and understanding of history, of religion, of philosophy, of different cultures. I'm not an expert, but as a teacher, you have to read a lot. It makes it easier to kind of think up things on the fly and think up, well, what would make sense for this culture or what would make sense for this social dynamic. And it wasn't something I had to spend a whole bunch of prep time on. So I would encourage you as a GM to consider the idea of what matters to the players, create a scaffolded outline of here's the things that matter to the players. We're going to tee these up for the players to give them an experience that relates to what their characters can care about. Maybe it's combat. Maybe it's they're trying to find a magical artifact. Maybe it's socializing and practicing their improv, whatever. Those are the things that the session for me always needs to be about. I ran a game the other day. I ran a first time combat game for some youth players. One of the players clearly was like, I need to put blood on the battlefield. And it makes sense because it's a combat story. But this player was like, it was their motivation that they had a character that was like, sharpening the blades and all this cool stuff. And we were kind of stumbling into role-playing territory. And I was like, oh, this character needs to kill something. Otherwise, it's going to be a terrible experience. So I was able to kind of, jujitsu another wave that kind of came over the woods, and they were able to put a couple arrows in some goblins and kill the goblins, and the goblins are dead. And then it was like, okay, they did it. They protected the party. They got their metagame moment of like doing the thing they needed to do, and they're super stoked about it. That's not to say we want to just feed players things just to say, hey, you're getting your feel goods. But there's a reason why people play role-playing games. It's avatar power fulfillment. It's myth creation. It relates to doing things that are things people want to do vicariously through their characters, or they want to try something out that maybe is not within character. They want to try something different. There was a comment here. I want to get back to it. Sorry, I'm kind of just rambling, but I hope this is useful. And let me know what more questions you have, because I have a few more minutes today where I can chat. I actually had some flex time today, so it's kind of nice. Lauren says, do you have advice for teaching D&D to a table of brand new beginners and experienced players, like a group of mixed levels of experience with the game? Good question. Good question. Let me think about that for a second. So do you have advice, mixed levels? My best approach with that, my perspective, I'll use a sports analogy. Sometimes when I was coaching, I would have players that were more experienced and just better basketball players than the new kids who hadn't played before, who had, much less experience. And it was always the first conversation I would always have would be with the more experienced players. And I would say like, okay, I know you've done this before. I know you're capable. I know you know what to do compared to the new players. But I need them to learn the basics so that they can help you, so that we can all have a positive thing happen. Because if they don't know what to do, we can't do the thing we all need to do. I would do the same approach with more experienced players and say, hey, with D&D, I know you know how to roll dice. I know you know how to do this. You've been down the path before. Can I ask for your help to support these new players, to bring them into the fold so that we can all adventure together as part of a group? Most people are like, yes, that sounds great. Most people are like super into it. They're like, absolutely, I can't wait to help somebody. And then there's a few people that say no, usually are not in RPG club games, because the ethos we have is we're here together to work together to help people. Like, we're not here to be like, well, I'm an expert. I'm an expert at role playing and I'm going to do it my way and I want to get right to it. Now, I don't mean to diminish people that don't want the beginner experience. Some people are just like, I don't want to have to teach people. And I do get that. And I can appreciate that. Here's the thing I would say to that is if we don't want to have a beginner experience, we need to find a group of people that are not beginners. And that can be challenging to do in this space, or we need to put the vibe out there specifically of, I'm looking for a group of people that have already played. Because let me use another example. When I was learning how to box, after a while, because I just liked helping people, I wasn't coaching people, but I was like doing very basic instruction. I'd hold the mitts for people and teach like very basic footwork. This was after like 2 or 3 years of boxing. So, I knew how to teach someone how to punch. But after a while, I realized like, okay, I'm teaching someone during my workout. This is my me time. I'm working out, but instead of working out, I'm teaching people, which at the time I didn't really want that. So I'm kind of thinking on my feet here. So I think what I did at that time is I would just tell people, I'm really here just to, I'm really here. This is a kind of a me moment, and I'm trying to find some other people that can match my level right now. I don't want to be disrespectful, but I'm looking for something that gives me the takeaways I'm looking for. I'm here for my workout. And it was a weird thing to say, but I had to go seek out the other people who wanted the same thing, because otherwise it was, there are a lot of people trying to learn. So I think it can be challenging. I think it is a little bit more difficult, but what I can say is if one is able to develop their own group, and bring new people in and work with them and develop good rapport and encourage a positive environment, usually you're going to have that experienced group of people before too long who know how to play. And I think teaching new players is a great way to get that. I don't think I'm thinking fast as I'm talking. Maybe I should just shut up because I'm really not sure exactly what I'm saying. I've seen, I think a lot of groups, actually, the more I think about it, a lot of the groups that run into trouble are the ones that I see in the forums, or that I see online, or that I see, at the post boards at wherever. And they say like, I am only experienced players. Look, we only have 3 players, but we need 3 more. Only experienced players. You have to have XYZ, and you've got to know what you're doing. And those people continually post the same thing over and over again, because I think that is a way that drives people away from whatever you're doing. I think it's a very closed door. So I'm going to kind of edit what I've just said. I think it's really hard to have an experience where you exclude people that are new as a default. It can be one thing if someone is new and they don't try to learn and grow with you, and that can be frustrating. I don't think it happens very often when we're adults doing paid GMing. I think most people who pay to learn how to play a role-playing game are really serious about it. That's what's one thing that's great about being a paid GM, is that people are like, I'm paying to be here. This is my time. I want to learn how to do this thing. You don't get a lot of screw arounds, in that environment. So I think that's a positive thing. But yeah, I think as a default, it's actually not a good idea to exclude new people from an activity. So I think you got to get the buy-in. This is a long answer to Lauren's question. I think you got to get the buy-in from the people who are experienced, and then have them help with the beginner's mindset. I think that's the best approach. Okay, remember where you were when you were new. We're going to go from there. Quasar says, when you start as a paid GM, do you transition and find new players who want to pay? So like if you have home groups, I mean, I found all my players when I was trying to be a paid GM as a professional, because I honestly didn't want to run games for free because I didn't have the time. So I recruited all my tables from, I had to work. I had to send a lot of messages to people, a lot of outreach. It's about a 3% conversion. Although with the new website, it's you find more people that are more interested. It's a lot higher percentage. But when I first started, sending Facebook messages, posting on Instagram, posting on a lot of Facebook messaging. And eventually I got some people that were interested. And then I got more people who were interested. And then I had to hire some people because so many people got interested. Like it's fascinating to me when I tell people what I do. And I feel like I'm always making it too complicated, because people at the basic level, what I keep running into now is people say to me, you mean you can actually help me learn how to play this game? And, I'm teaching, I'm like talking like, we have these workshops, we have all these things we can do. And how have we done it with, so many players. And what I keep getting is people that ask me, like, the basic existence of the support for this that we provide is the thing that's in question. Like, you actually do this as a business, and I can just pay money and learn this hobby without any crap, without having to navigate anything weird. the existence of us as a service company, as paid GMs providing. And I want to say there's a difference between a paid GM and just someone who just pays to run a game and what RPG Club does. Because there's a lot of people who pay to run, get paid to run games, but we focus on an ethos of teaching and mentoring and support, beginning mindset, and then helping people who are serious about learning, but who also want to have fun, have a place to play where there's no crap. And the way I look at it is we keep the riffraff out. And what I mean is there's people who want to destroy experiences. They often don't have a lot of time or energy in our games. They really don't like what we do because we have a high standard of, we want to treat each other well. We don't let people, slay one another just because that's what my character would do. Like, we're there to have a positive experience. And the players who play with us usually are people that work, who have, this is their time, working during the week, and they have their time where they want to play, and they don't want people to screw around and waste it just by being a dickhead. So the players, I think, support one another in that sense. But every experience I've had with our player base has been super positive. I have super positive player groups every single time I go to the table, because I think the ethos of people who come to RPG Club is what I hope is what I try to put out there, which is positive, supportive, mature, engaged, wanting to learn, wanting to be together. So we got some comments here. Excalibur says, I had a new player in a one-shot who just wanted to jump everywhere and really push that jumping mechanic. There you go. Cool. I like it. Quasar says, I see. Thanks for the reply. I missed somebody. Adventure Engine says, usually start asking your existing players to start supporting the work you put in. Some might leave and you'll attract others. Yeah, here's what I would say. And this is actually what we're going to start doing with RPG Club, because I think it's important to professionalize the hobby. I have a bias toward professionalizing this because professionalizing it allows people to run better games. It allows people to get more out of it. And I think the professionalizing of this experience will solve most of the problems players have. And the problems players have are bad GMs. And what I mean are people who are not good at teaching role-playing games, or they're just a little neurotic and self-centered. So when you professionalize something, you have to be good at it. So that's my goal, is to try to professionalize this whole hobby. So I think when somebody starts to run a paid table, or when they become a professional GM, and especially with RPG Club, like, this is what I do. This is a skill that I have. I'm working on it. I'm putting a lot of time into it. I actually think I'm leaning towards saying, if you should bring your players along. Like, they should support what you do. The best way for people to see how good you are at it, and for people to experience the growth of this as a real positive space, is to be bought into it. And when people don't take your time for granted, they'll take your games more seriously. They won't cancel on you. They won't screw around. The prep work that you put in as a GM will be respected a lot more. That's why I don't run free games, because I think it's a waste of my time usually, because people, when something is free, they have no buy-in. And that's the whole topic I've talked about before. I don't need to talk more about it right now. But I think, again, that's kind of a distraction. Horatio said, we played last night and one player turned on the group in character because they saw the party is so chaotic. Fighting in every interaction, no dialogue with people we're trying to get into from. I think so. So Horatio says, we played last night. So I think one of the characters was fighting everybody. And hey, good morning, Barry. I just saw Barry jump in. Good to see you, Barry. You're always one of our happy, smiling faces that I'm always happy to see. Even we haven't talked in a while, but it's good to see you. Yeah, Horatio says that there was a chaotic player in their game. I'm not a huge fan of people that try to do chaotic things just for the heck of it. I think it has to mean something to the story. And I think you can be chaotic once you know people at the table, once you know the dynamic of the group and there's a character objective. But usually with the new groups I've run, they're not chaotic on purpose. Maybe they're chaotic accidentally because they're just trying to do something with their character. But what I mean by that is they're not trying to deliberately sabotage other players. Like, maybe they're a rogue and they're like, I just want to pickpocket things. Like, that's the pickpocket button, right? They want to hit the pickpocket button. That's why they're a rogue. So what I try to do to channel chaos, I try to ask them, like, well, what's your intent? What are you trying to do? And usually if someone's being chaotic being a behavior that could be construed as negative to the whole experience, I want to say, well, what are you trying to do? What's your intent? What are you trying to do with your character? And trying to get at that core idea. Usually they want to do something with the mechanic, or they want their character to do something in the game. So for me, it's a way of trying to say, hey, why don't we see how we can help the group by doing something like that? Here's what you might see in the game world. So kind of redirect it, let them do the cool thing they want to do, but not in a way that destroys everything. So especially when you're first getting started. I think once everybody knows each other, it's a lot easier for players to have more room to navigate. But it's I think it can be very hard when you first are getting a group together and the dynamic is just emerging. I think the GM has to have a really keen insight into what's going on, trying to encourage team play, trying to focus on team play. Hey, we're here to support each other. You know, a character like I always say, we don't do war crimes. We're not going to just walk into a tavern and just kill everyone. I know some players like to play that way, which you can play that way if you want to. Look, as a person, I could care less how you play D&D, but when you're trying to have a positive, supportive environment, I think when you come in and you just start doing random things, I think it can be negative. It can destroy the experience for people who are just trying to learn the character. Like, hey, I want to talk to the innkeeper, and the innkeeper gets an arrow in their neck. It's like they're like, oh, well, that sucked. I'm never going to play again. And that's what happens. People wonder, why do people leave the RPG table? It's because they didn't get a chance to do the thing that they tried to do because somebody was being a dickhead. And I look at basically my whole job as head of RPG club is to be like dickhead patrol. To just make sure that, like, okay, nobody be a jerk. Just let's all work together. We're all on the same team, because so many folks are just like, oh, I just want to put an arrow in something. I'm like, I'll give you a chance. Don't worry. We're going to get there. And then when it's time to do combat, give them plenty of targets. Let them shoot and kill as much as they want, but like make it so that they're doing it together. This is all like, first couple sessions. Once they're working together as a party and they have the vibe and they understand that as a group, people respect each other and like, oh yeah, I'm going to let you talk. And then I'm going to kill people after you talk to them. And it's okay. I'm just kind of being facetious. So Plush Viking says, do you have any concerns that professionalizing TTRPGs can lessen the organic friendships that form with we're just playing a game here mentality? No, I don't really have a concern, because I've seen most of our games. I mean, I have games. We started our business in 2019, 2020. We have games that have been going for 200 plus weeks, and people only play with the GMs and the people that they started with. So I don't have a problem with the idea, because I think it actually creates better friendships. Because when people pay for something more engaged, this is the thing. And plus, I'm not focusing on you. You brought up an idea, and I'm glad you asked this. I appreciate you asking this question. Also, by the way, teachable moments. I'm trying to demonstrate my process here. Being positive. Plush asked a great question about professionalizing the hobby and friendships. We actually see friendships that have developed because of the professional model, because people are bought in. And when people are bought in, they attend every week or as often as they can. When somebody pays for something, they value something more. So they take it more seriously. They don't screw around. They respect others, because others who are paying are also bought in. And friendships take time. So the key critique I see of RPG games is that people don't get to enjoy them because the games fall apart, because people are unreliable. And that's because nobody's bought in. So nobody's paying for it really, except the GM, who buys all the stuff and they do all the prep work. But the players are like, I have no reason to show up other than if I want to. And then if something else comes up that takes any effort at all, or any obstacle to showing up at the RPG game, they're like, well, I can't show up because I have a thing I have to do. But when you make people pay to show up, and you say you've paid and everyone else is paid, there's an incentive that everyone has. Like, I value this thing. I paid my $20, my $30, whatever it is. I'm going to go do it because I paid for it. So I value it. If you don't pay for something, you don't value it. As an economics teacher of 15 years, I believe that. Like, I won't debate that with you. I won't debate that with anybody. When you pay for something, you value something. The more you pay for it, the more you value it. You don't have to pay for it. I don't force I'm not forcing anyone to pay for anything. I don't ever put, like, no one's got a gun to their head to play in RPG club games. If someone wants to leave, I'm like, well, I appreciate you being here. If there's anything I can do, please give me some feedback. Like, no, this is a free market. No one has to play in our games, but people choose to play in them because they last for 200 plus weeks. In many cases, the games are generally very reliable. The players are bought in, and that allows friendships to form. Friendships take time and consistency. When people are bought in, then you get time and consistency. So, Plush, I appreciate you asking the question. The idea of we're all just playing a game here, like we pay for our Xbox subscriptions, Xbox Live. People play online, they meet buddies online. It's just because you enjoy something doesn't mean it should be free. What you're paying for when you pay for something it means that it's something you can expect things out of it, and you have buy-in. And the most important thing is what I said earlier. You have people like me who can control the quality, and that's what other places actually don't do with their RPG spaces. That they don't control the quality of the GMs, and if you don't control the quality of the GMs, and the GMs aren't accountable to anybody, then the community deteriorates. And then you just have a bunch of asshats who run things. You have prices will drop to the floor because people that are chaos monkeys that want to do whatever they want generally don't want to pay more than like $5 for a game. And if those people run things, the idea of if you pay a little bit amount, like less money for things, you value it less. I don't think that people that pay $5 for things value it as much as people that pay $35 for it. So if someone who's paying $35 for a game, someone comes in and starts being a complete jerk, they're going to tell the GM. The GM's going to tell me, and I'm going to kick them out. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk to them first. It's mostly going to be a positive resolution. We've only had that happen twice in 15,000 plus games. Quasar says, hey, thanks for answering my question, Adam. I got to go. Hope you have a great day. Hey, happy to help, Quasar. That's my job here. Oh, we have a whole bunch of stuff here, a bunch of other comments. I really appreciate all the comments here. I'm getting caught up with my new system. Lauren says, I have so many new friends because of the professional model. My RPG club, Call of Cthulhu friends, are so supportive of a new player of the system. I'm having the best time. Nice. Plush says, I asked because I've been DMing games since the 90s, and about 70% of my friend group was getting through TTRPGs. I'm an old tabletop gamer. No, it's a good question. No, Plush, I'm just kind of catching up. It's a good question. I think what we see a lot right now in the RPG community is there's a lot of young people who want to learn how to play, who have been introduced to D&D through Critical Role, who've been introduced through media. They've actually haven't been introduced to the game. They've been introduced to the media, video game media and digital media. So then they come to the table and they think, I can play like a video game. And that's actually, we call it Skyrim syndrome internally. So we have a lot of players who have Skyrim syndrome, where it's like one player game. I'm doing my own thing. Everyone else is there to serve me. So we have to say like, hey, we're not playing Skyrim. We're playing a collaborative. And so we stress this is a together thing. So a lot of expectation setting and like reframing what we're doing and why we're doing it is really important from my point of view. I think older players, that's I grew up in the 90s too, older players like myself, we had to find ways to play organically. We didn't have the social media tools and the internet to find people. So it was a lot more arduous. It's hard to find a game. But when you found them, you were like, these are my people. I'm sticking with them. The cool thing now is you can find your people very easily. They're all at RPG Club, or I mean, they're online. Most gamers are around online. So it's easy to find people to play with. And there's, I think, a preconceived notion by gamers in my age group, a little older, that like, well, these aren't going to be genuine people that really want to play. And I can tell you this, every person I've met through RPG Club who has paid me to run a game has been freaking awesome. And they have wanted to play a role-playing game because that's why they're there. No one's going to pay to just show up and be like, well, I don't really want to do this. Or I don't know if they're really into it. Like somebody who pays to do something is like, they're always prepared, so much better prepared than people that don't pay. People that don't pay usually just don't show up. and if they show up, I'm glad they're there. I haven't run a free game since I was teaching, since I was in the classroom. I only ran free games for kids when I was in the classroom. And, it's just a different thing, because when you're paying, you're bought it completely. So it's a total bias I have toward the way markets work and the way money can change the benefit people get from things. And honestly, when you pay for something as a person, I think you actually get much, much more out of it. And if you want, and I truly believe that playing role-playing games is a beneficial thing. That's why we charge for it, because I want people to have the beneficial thing and I want to provide it for them. One thing I haven't actually said, like, if I don't run a ton of games, I just run workshops, but like people have accused me and talked about like, well, you're just trying to make money off people, or you're just trying to turn the hobby into a money-making space. Like if I just wanted to make money, I could just go run a whole bunch of games. I don't have to build the network. Like I have access to players where I could just go run 20 games a week, and financially I'm good. But I believe in the idea of what we're doing, of trying to spread this philosophy of professionalizing the hobby, at least for many of the GMs that are interested in it. So that's why I want to do this. That's why I keep doing it. So again, sorry for a tangent. Angry Scotsman says, any cool D&D games and pubs around Temecula? We're all online, my friend. I'm sure there are, but I don't know of any games in person in that area. I know that in-person games are really hard to find today for many reasons. And I think it's going to probably be that way into the future. And I think it's because people I don't have time to drive to the pub and run games in person. I just don't. I used to run games at the pub, but even now I can just run games from my computer professionally. I don't have time to drive down and bring all my stuff. And what I've noticed is what's interesting, people actually want to pay less for in person than they would for online, because online is so convenient. So they pay for the convenience for not having to drive anywhere. You don't have to buy food at the restaurant and buy beer or whatever it is. You just get to just sit in your house and play, and the game happens on your schedule, usually after your kids go to bed or after you get off work. Scotsman says, I'd totally pay to play if the DM guaranteed to show up. Scotsman, DMs have to show up, otherwise I fire them. I mean, now I'm being a little bit facetious. Like people get sick. Like we had over the holidays, like tons of people got sick, but our GMs show up. Like we have people that one of my guys, Jason, has run over 1,000 games for us, and he's paid the whole time. So, he has tons of clients and he has a waiting list. So for me, we wouldn't have a company if people didn't show up, as GMs didn't show up. So if you're looking for a game, Scotsman, you can send me a PM, or you can head over to the link in my bio. We've got a whole bunch of games with openings. I'd be happy to help figure out, what game works for you. That's my job, is to find you a place to play. And that's what this is all about. Excalibur says we do what we love. We want people to be welcome to the hobby. Nice. Yeah, Excalibur is one of our GMs. He's John. He's doing a great job. John, I think you have a John. Do you have a Strahd session 0 you're trying to get going this weekend? Drop that in the chat if you are. And then hold on, someone asked something here. I told it. Dragon Wing says, "Don't you have to be a good storyteller to be a dungeon master?" Hell yeah, I'm a great storyteller. I'm a great storyteller. That's why I make a whole bunch of money doing this. Hell yeah. Yes, I can, but it's just like telling stories. Everybody loves telling bedtime stories. I tell my daughter bedtime stories. Got to be a great storyteller. As you walk into the inn, what you see is a large man standing behind the counter, and what he has in front of him is a steaming plate of meat, and next to it are a roasted vegetables. And he looks at you. He looks at you, Dragonwing, and he says, "Well, my name is Toblin Stonehill. Welcome to my inn. How can I help you? What can I do for you today?" And you hesitate because this is a new place for you. You're not sure exactly what you should do. You've maybe never been here before. You see several characters sitting around in the inn, and they're looking at you. They're looking at you, but you've been on the road for many days, and you smell. You were tired. You were stinky. You were gross. You were exhausted. And this dwarf with a red beard looks at you and says, "Dragonwing, what can I do to help you? I would like to help you, adventurer." So yeah, I can tell a good story. That's my job, is to tell a good story. So, and that's what all our DMs can do. I am not a great storyteller. I'm a good storyteller, but all the GMs, that's all they do all day in our RPG club. They just tell great stories. That's what they're paid to do. So yeah, you got to be a great storyteller, and being a great storyteller often involves the things we talked about at the beginning of teaching and understanding players, understanding people, focusing on the individual, and not focusing on like, I have this pantheon that I want to talk about. I have this lore that I wrote that I want to talk about. That's the downfall of so many GMs. And if somebody wants to work for RPG Club, send me a professional resume. You can go to the website. There's a little link that says apply to GM. Send me a professional resume and send me a cover letter. Don't tell me about all your lore. Tell me how much job experience you have. Most of our people that work for us have 8 to 10 years of professional work experience after high school or college. They are professionals. They are tech savvy. They are very reliable. They are accountable. And we've already had instances where I bring people on, they don't do the things that are expected, and goodbye, because we don't do that with our RPG Club. We don't do tryouts, is what I like to say. Like, we're not trying out like, hey, maybe this will be like, maybe I can learn. I have people say, hey, maybe I can learn how to be a GM. I've never GM before, but I want to work for RPG Club. And I'm like, that's great. I really hope you do get to GM. I have so much content on my feed. I would love to support you with all the content I put out for how to GM. And there's so many great things to do, but I'm not going to put you with players if you don't know how to GM, because when you're paying for service, you're saying I'm professional and I can take care of business. So I'm going to drop something in the chat here. I haven't done this before, but I want to do proof of concept so y'all can see what I'm talking about. Give me 1 second. So we teach kids, and I get asked this all the time, like, where's the proof? Just because we're new, I understand we're new with our platform. People will say like, oh, do you have proof of work? So I just dropped a link into the chat. That is the profile we use to teach kids, and it's got over 3,100 reviews on it. And we taught over thousands of kids. So I'm pretty confident in the record that we have, and you can check out the reviews, take a look at it. So let me catch up on the chat. Wow, we got a lot of good chat today. This is like on fire. Okay, Scotsman and Excalibur catching up. Curse of Strahd session 0 for Excalibur is on Saturday. Plush Viking says all my games are IRL, 3 campaigns every Saturday. Online seems to lack something intangible. That is only. Yeah, online is different in the sense that you're not going to get the exact same feel as you do in person. But what I found with most IRL games is that they don't meet, because people, for whatever reason, it's hard to get somewhere. But online games, they do meet. So I believe in the philosophy of it's always better to do than to prepare to do. And the good is better than the perfect. So what I see with online games is they actually take place and they play. I was actually looking at most of our games in most of our gaming groups, that the majority of our gaming groups, I think, are over a year old or more. And so many of the groups, once they form, they become what I consider forever groups. So they finish a campaign. They're like, well, what should we do next? They finish Avernus and they're like, well, we should do Exandria. Think how, that's what the dream is, right? Like, okay, that's the dream. Okay, we finished the one story that was epic and took a year and a half. What's the next thing? Like that's always what my dream as a kid. And that's hopefully what I'm creating for people. So Dragon Wing says, I thought about being a DM, but I'm not a great storyteller. Well, the only way to Dragon Wing is to get better is to start practicing. And the best way you can start practicing is to run. I would just say get the starter kit, get the original starter kit with Lost Mines of Phandelver. I think it's in the new one, the Shards of the Obelisk thing, whatever that new book is, and just practice. And the best way to practice is to emulate a GM and set up some very basic encounters and only go 90 minutes. Go 90 minutes, do a role-play encounter around a campfire, do a combat encounter in the woods, and then do maybe some exploration of a brief dungeon with some tunnels and a treasure chest. Okay, keep it simple. You don't have to blow their mind. Always leave people with a sense of like, that was great. And that is your first step. You just got to practice it and do it and emulate what you see GMs do. And the first time you do it, it's going to feel uncomfortable. And then the next time you do it, it'll feel a little less uncomfortable. All right. Plush says also running online is my phobia. Yeah, online can be a little frustrating because you have tech tools. And that's just part of the process. Catching up here, where Horatio said we're in 6th level and Curse of Straw and just got wiped fighting a group instead. Power says I don't disagree, but the paradigm of the hobby has changed, especially post-COVID. Yeah, a lot of people, like personally, I'm not too worried about COVID. And I never was worried about COVID, but to each their own. But yes, most people are online. I think it has to do a little bit with COVID. I think it also has to do with the ability of people to access things easily. And so if things are online, it's easy and efficient. So people are able to just get there and rock it much more readily than finding where the pub's at or finding whose house are we going to. And like, oh my God, if I know somebody's house or if I go to someone's house, how do I know they're not a creeper? The thing with RPG Club is it's online. So, you don't have to deal with all that. Dragon says, mostly what I've done has been evil fantasy LARP. Oh, Dragon, if you've done that, I'm sure you could transition that into telling a story as a GM. I'll be honest. I just tell the stories that I have in my head from the movies and books that I've read. I just tell Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and The Hobbit and, Elric of Melniboné and Conan the Barbarian. I just tell those stories over and over again, but with different twists on them based on modules I'll prep so that people have some familiar posts to hang their hat on. Horatio said, I'm not fond of having a turn to talk at the table. We only have 2 hours to play. The Chaos Crew wants to fight, not converse with everyone we come across. I'm not fond of not having a turn to talk at the table. Horatio, if you're not getting a turn to talk, I would say that your GM is maybe not doing what they need to be doing. One thing I make a really big point of at my tables is everyone gets a turn, even with adult games. Like everyone gets a turn, everyone gets a chance, whether or not they want to do something. So every character gets to have a thought before some other character can be like, before some paladin can like take over, meta paladin who can be like, here's what we're going to do, team. Here's the plan. Or like, let's attack. Like everyone gets to have some input. And I think as adults, most of our players in the adult space, realize like we're all there to have fun and to work together. So if you're not getting a turn regularly and Chaos Crew wants to just start rocking it, they want to start fighting everything, you all might have different gaming interests. And this is what I like to say is there's a game for everybody, but not every game is for every player. So we've had instances where players, they'll just tell me, I don't like the GM. They're a nice person. I don't think their style's for me. And I'm like, that's totally fine. And they're like, can I change? I'm like, of course you can change. Like, I don't want you to pay for something that you don't feel is a good fit. And the GM is usually like, oh, of course. Like, I don't want you to pay me for an awful experience. So they're like, let's find you a good GM. That's the sign of being professional when it's about the person, not about your own money. And I've had instances where I've referred people outside of RPG Club where they're like, hey, your GM, the times you have just aren't available. I'm looking for something in this way. And I'll refer them to somebody I know who's a good GM. Another great friend in this space, Malcolm, Gentleman Game Master, runs great games. He's on the West Coast, and they just do awesome theater of the mind stuff. It's fantastic. He's top tier professional. So I don't have this notion of like, oh, you can't go anywhere else. Let me look down here. Plush says to get good, you need to practice, but you cannot get practice with pay to play because you're not good enough. This implies there must be free games for GMs. Yeah, practice with your friends, practice with your family. But you got to get good somehow. it's, we hire maybe 5% of people that apply, and that's just the nature of the beast. Life's not fair. I don't know what else to say. Like, life's not fair. I've worked my ass off with this, and I know so the GMs that are getting paid to do this. And we'll be real, they're not getting rich doing this. I'm not getting rich doing this. We're just doing something that's positive that we enjoy and that provides a positive experience for people. So, I put 15 years in as an educator. And when people say like, well, why do I have to pay you? Why do I pay you for this? And I say, well, you're paying me for the 15 years it took to get really, really good at group management. And if you don't want to pay me, that's cool. You can go practice it on your own. And that's how people get better. And yes, it might be hard to practice on your own, but that's the process of becoming professional. There's always a season of learning, and then there's a season of earning, and they're not the same. So Horatio says one player always casts darkness just because. Well, that sounds like a huge pain. Horatio, you need to get hooked up with one of our groups. You should talk to John about his Curse of Strahd game. John will take care of you. Ye Old Excalibur will take care of your ratio. Checking up, we've done a Die Hard in our group. Nice. A Die Hard RPG sounds amazing. Oh, there you go. John already was like, PM me if you want to help. All right, cool. Everybody's touching base. All right, I like it. Okay, if you have any other questions, let me know. If you have thoughts, let me know. I'm going to take off here in a little bit, but this has actually been really fruitful today. I think we covered a lot of positive ground, and I went longer than I anticipated, but I'm digging it. I don't know if the video quality is any good, but what the hell? Whatever. We're trying something new. Adventure says another way to practice is to play more often, learn the rules through play, and practice with your own backstory and character development to the game. I won't give you everything now. I'll just be honest. I only ran 2 D&D sessions before I ran a pay-to-play table. I just ran I just taught for 15 years. And to me, D&D is the exact same thing as teaching. So I like to tell stories. I ran other games, like I ran Star Wars, but you don't have to learn the rules terribly well to be a good DM. You got to be good with people. You got to be good with, from my point of view, you got to be good at understanding personal dynamics, because this is a social game. And by the way, when people, this is a tangent, but I'm going to get into this one. It's a social hobby. So to play TTRPGs, we need other people. And I know people are going to tell me like, Adam, there's these great solo RPGs you can play and solo TTRPGs. And I'm sure there's solo experiences you can have. But for me, this is all about other people. Like if I want to play a video game by myself, or I want to play something by myself, I'll just play a video game. And I don't say like, I'm playing a Dungeons and Dragons session. I'm like, I'm playing a video game. And it might be fantasy based. It might be whatever, but to me, if you're going to go play a TTRPG, you're doing it for the people. And so I think that's where the ultimate skill set lies. So the best thing I think for people who want to be GMs is practice working with people, practice focusing on others, have a very small story you want to tell, keep it bite size, say, hey, I'm new, I'm going to do my best. Maybe run a game for some GMs, because then they can give you feedback. That's something, that's something that's positive here. Horatio says video quality is great. Voice goes low for a sec, but we can still hear. All right, let me turn my mic up. There we go. Dice Table says, as a fellow ex-teacher, this man speaks the truth. I appreciate it, Dice. Just one man in the universe trying to help people do something that I think is positive. I think it's a positive thing to play role-playing games. I really do. I wish I wasn't obsessed with it the way I was. It'd be a lot more liberating. I could do other things in my life, but this is what life has chosen for me. William says, I have a lot of experience DMing. I spent a lot of money on cool physical minis and cool buildings props. Is there a good way I could find players who want to pay for a good in-person session? Just Dad just showed up. Hey, what's up, Just Dad? I want to see you in one of my workshops, my friend, or one of our games, because I know we talked about it last time. I think EJ would be a great game for you, or John has a Curse of Strahd this weekend. That would be fantastic for you, but that's a digression. So is there a good way I could find players who want to pay for a good in-person session? Here's what I do, and I'll just tell you what I do. I send or do 100 actions a day to recruit people, and I do that because I'm in charge of the business, so I have to really focus on outreach for the whole company. Start sending messages, put posts in Facebook groups, start a meetup group. That's how I got started. I put a meetup group, and I just said I'm going to charge $5. Oh, Nate Moon's here. Hey, what's up, Nate? I haven't seen you in a while. You have to do a lot of outreach to find your first player group. A lot of outreach, because there's a lot of players who are going to say, hey, I want to do this for free. And then you'll say, hey, well, I'm going to charge $5-10 or whatever. And I'll be like, nah, I don't know. I don't want to pay. And then it's like, all right, cool. You got to be willing to get the rejection, take the rejection for the few people who will say yes. Just Dad says, I want to join, still noob to a lot of online stuff. So I'm learning. I'm old. Don't worry. I'm old too. Any of our GMs are going to help you out, my friend. Any of our GMs with RPG Club, if you're just there, they can take care of the rest. So most of the tech stuff's pretty, if you can get on a Zoom call, you can figure out how to play online. It's pretty straightforward. And what I mean by straightforward is they'll take care of most of the tech heavy lifting. It's not going to be like, here to learn all of this crap that it's going to be like work. At least it shouldn't be like that. So yeah, I mean, paying to play, finding people is, let me use this example. There are GMs who want to work with RPG Club, and I try to tell people it's going to seem like you're putting in a ton of work up front for almost no return. Because when you're trying to establish yourself as a professional at something in a market that already has people established in it, people are going to say, well, who the heck are you? Why should I pay you when I can pay so-and-so over here to do something? And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's more work than you're probably going to realize. And the difference between the people that are successful at this, the people who are on our team that are successful, people like myself, and people who that don't do it successfully, maybe they don't have any games or go, oh, it's just a scam. Those are the people that can't push through that part of feeling like I'm putting in a ton of work to build a business. Because really what you're doing is you're building a book of business. And I think a lot of role-playing gamers have a hard time pushing through that, because it's a skill it's a different kind of skill than just telling a story. So the idea of building a business, the concept of building a business is something that is challenging. It takes a lot of persistence, it takes a lot of effort, there's a lot of failure. I failed so many times in doing all this. I've learned every day how much I learn more and more how much I failed when I've done this thing, how much I fail at the business side of it. And I just try to not repeat those mistakes. But finding players takes a lot of outreach. The only way to do it is just tell people that you're playing, hey, I'm going to charge start $5-10 a game. Establish the concept and just say, hey, I'm going to charge to people. And this is what I want to do. And this is what I'm doing now. And maybe, I have some GMs who their friends are like, dude, this is awesome. I'm so excited for you. Fantastic. And then they're like, I can't wait. Can I join your game and pay? And they have other people who are like, their home games just ghost them. They're like, I don't want to pay you. Why would I pay you? You can figure out who your friends are real quick when that happens. You can figure out who your friends are in the D&D space when you're like, hey, I want to do this professionally. I don't have time to run our home games anymore. Here's the games I'm going to be running professionally. You'll see who's on your team and who really values your time, especially if it's just like $5 or $10. A lot of people are mooches based on what I've seen, but and those people are the ones that are not generally positive in the pay to play space anyway, because they are about themselves and getting their whatever chaos out at the table. And that's fine. They can go do that for free somewhere else. All right. I feel like I'm caught up on the chat. I feel like I talked for a long time today. I've got some messages I got to respond to. So if you want to figure out what we got going on this weekend, we have a ton of games. Check the link in the bio. There's a whole bunch of games that we're running. We have some site updates we're doing. We're updating the hosting, which seems very boring, but it's going to increase the site speed. So that's been a huge project. We have a whole bunch of little fiddly bits that we're trying to update. So I'm really trying to get those things updated so the site is really, really good, because we're seeing user growth every day. And we're in the process of, I think we're going to bring on 2 GMs this month. I don't know. We might not bring on a couple more until the end of next month, because my goal is not to bring on just, hey, let's open the floodgates, because that's how you destroy things. I want people that are really, really, confident and dedicated and willing to put the time in, because as I've said, it's a lot of work. And the GMs who are in here will attest to that. This is working for RPG Club is a legit job. It can be a part-time job, but it's a legit job. It's not just a practice job. So, all right. John said, or Dad said, I have original TSR first edition books, advanced D&D books. That's how long I've been playing. There you go. Right on. They're just catching up on the conversation. I'm glad they stopped using less math, the better. All right. Well, folks, I'm gonna head out, because this has been a good long session. I have some workshops to run over the next couple of days as well. So I'm Adam Scott. I'll see you next time.